Hey everyone, Lawrence here. I'm back with my newsletter kind of weekly update thing. This one's going to be more of a scatter shot of collections, recollections. Didn't really have time to write a short story or present anything more unified than that, but I told you it wasn't all going to be good. Just got back from the all-weekend Tiki convention called Tiki Oasis down in San Diego. But luckily, my landlords came by and decided to knock out the internet on my spot, so that's why this is a little bit late too, and why it's a little more rickety than usual, but I'll get to all that. The first night of Tiki Oasis was magical because I got there. Ate some rice, drank some drinks, and gosh, people were already getting sloppy on the first night. I mean, it's a tiki convention, so there's going to be booze, there's like tiki cocktails everywhere. But yeah, some lady popped her boobs out at dinner, so that's cool. There's like a group photo. There's always a live wire in the group. So I was like, well, that's a good sign. I wonder if people are going to start getting in fights soon. And just then, on cue, couldn't ask for better timing, this just like red-faced, sweaty, bald, angry man stumbles into the room, and he's already like tensed up, right? And he's squaring off with somebody who's just like following after him, just trying to get him to go away and calm down. There's some shoving that goes on. It almost gets good. The guy gets grabbed. He's got like 3 people on him now, and they're stumbling outside of the restaurant. And he's all mad, you know. He's like kind of like borderline fighting, but doesn't actually throw a punch kind of thing. So he's just all amped up. And then the most perfect thing I've ever seen in my life. While this dude's getting dragged past a table, his arms held back. He kind of like tries to motion for one of those empty wine glasses on there, and the dude's kind of just yank him back. But it's just one of those perfect like tantrum children getting dragged out of a room, grabbing for anything they can. It was a beautiful moment, and I'll treasure it always. The rest of the week was a little less delightfully consequential. I went to a lot of seminars, a lot of panels, learned a lot about ska, because of course, which is really fascinating to me. I got introduced to ska in the third wave, you know, all those dorky bands in the late 90s. So to me, not really having an education about it, I thought ska just meant rock guitar plus horns. Later then kind of identified it was more about the 2/4 time signature and the bounciness of it. But I got to see a really cool video about how to dance to ska.
There are 4 basic steps to the ska. The first is to keep the beat with the upper half of the body.
I don't know, I find this stuff endearing, even if it is maybe not the coolest thing in the world. But it is, I think, an early sign that this music was meant to be widely enjoyed by everybody. There's something very universal about the sound. That's what makes it appealing. I also heard this anecdote about ska leading into rocksteady, and this is all kind of oral history stuff. So this is not necessarily agreed upon academia, but it's a nice story regardless. Basically that as ska was sort of emerging as the national sound of Jamaica following their independence in 1962, there was this massive heat wave in Jamaica in the mid-60s. And since it was so hot there, they couldn't play music at the usual tempo because people were passing out in the dance clubs, so they had to slow everything down. And that's what led to rocksteady. I haven't heard enough to theorize, so I won't theorize yet, but I have a theory. And I think my theory is that the slower rhythms of rocksteady then allowed for more syncopation and more exploring with the bass, more of those like arpeggios up and down with bass that then you hear in reggae, and then, you know, dub reggae and all that cool stuff. This is one cool track as part of the rocksteady movement that I really liked, and I think you can hear some of the early elements of that bass kind of crawling all over the place.
My troubles.
Man, and some of those chord changes and chord progressions are a little sneakier than you would hear in, I guess, more danceable ska. I also learned, this was surprising to me, that Maya Angelou was also a calypso music performer, in addition to being an author and a poet and a million other things, it turns out. And there's a really good performance in this movie called Calypso Heatwave that I'm now really excited to see, that I also wanted to share.
The money won't let me go, Ranto as fast as you can, Ranto. This police holding me hand.
There I am, imbibing all of this wonderful musical information and sorting through new Spotify artists and stuff when my phone starts blowing up. We're standing in line waiting for drinks, and my phone starts blowing up, like all of my services basically telling me my internet's gone out. Then I get this message from my landlord being like, hey, hope everything's okay. But was just trimming some branches, one fell, ripped a cord out. Hopefully there's no problem. Well, yeah, there was a bit of a problem. It didn't end up being that big of a deal. It did afford me a day, though, without internet. So I got to roll all the way back to the 90s. And I busted out a bunch of old DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. And I used the occasion to watch the Batman Forever 4K UHD with director's commentary from Joel Schumacher, I was hoping that Joel would share more anecdotes about on-set production. Instead, and I respect this a great deal, there was just a whole bunch of praise heaped upon the other members of the cast, the performers, the crew. Just could not stop singing the praises of the crew that he worked with. So I respect that a lot. I was kind of excited to hear more about like just the weirdness of that shoot. There was some amount of that, some talking of like cut scenes. What Schumacher did really hit on though was the just outrageous dedication of Jim Carrey's performance. Said that he drilled every single take in the mirror hundreds of times, would come to set, would want to do thousands and thousands of takes just to get everything absolutely perfect. And mentioned that, like, you know, when he's performing on screen, you might think that some of these motions are improvised, but he said absolutely not. Everything was like absolutely planned and rigidly choreographed. And that's really interesting if you really look at his body language, especially, I mean, in a lot of his roles, but good God, in this one. Also mentioned that he learned all of the cane twirls all on his own, and that cane was not light. It was a stage prop, so that was a big deal too.
Disgustingly decadent. Yet so bright and chipper and conservative. It's so...
I can't help but wonder, you know, how many hours of effort were poured into that performance to get those scenes that then went in a film that, you know, is just a footnote now. I guess that's a lot of art in general, and that's not the point. You don't dedicate yourself to a craft or a performance thinking that it will be celebrated forever. You do it because I guess you're driven, or I guess there's a variety of motivations. It's interesting to think about the just sheer amount of effort and professionalism that goes into performances like that. I then also tried to watch Prometheus. I finally wanted to watch Prometheus, but it crashed my Blu-ray player 3 times. And on the third one, I figured that was enough. I was enjoying the first 30 minutes. I'm sure I'll get back to it. Also, I wonder, did anyone accuse Prometheus of ripping off Mass Effect? I don't know, I remember some people saying that about Avatars. Like, oh, it's just ripping off Halo. Pretty fun stuff, really. All right, this is late, and by the time I get to post this, it'll be even later, so it kind of makes it very useless as a stream updating tool, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's tradition now. For me, tomorrow, Wednesday, is Wing Wednesday, as it's becoming branded, so I'm going to get back to Ace Combat Zero and play that pretty much all day. I'm really excited for that. Raid Night has moved to Thursday this week. We're going to be trying the 3rd floor of Pandemonium on Savage difficulty. That probably means nothing to you if you don't play that game, but this is the slobber knocker. This is the real ball buster. This is supposed to be the hard one, so I'm looking forward to getting the soul ground out of me. And then Friday, Spider-Man comes out. I'm excited to play Spider-Man again on PC. I do like Spider-Mans. Who doesn't like Spider-Mans? So we'll see. I remember the story of that game kind of being whack, though. I do remember the story not making a whole lot of sense. So we'll see if either I wasn't paying enough attention or I'm actually right and that game is nonsensical. And then Saturday, I'm taking off because it's someone very special. It's someone very special's birthday. And I don't want to reveal it if they don't want it revealed, but it's Bruce. Thank you guys very much for watching, whether you're watching the stream or this video or whatever you're doing. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Have a good week.